Okay, so Ajala, what is Ajala here to talk about? The UK. You know, I made a vlog a couple months ago about how transportation in the UK is seamless and it's very easy and all of that shebang. But this is really getting around the UK as a country. If there is one thing anybody who really knows me knows, is that I have a certain phobia for being in the air for too long. Like, what am I doing there? I'm not supposed to be in the air. I'm supposed to be on the ground. I love the science, I love everything that they do, but come on, can I just be on the ground, please? So I decided to tour the entire UK and figure out how easy is it to get around the UK without actually needing to fly. And I did it. When we say the UK, a lot of people think that the UK is just England. And I know that a lot of people who also know that this is not just England, but I want to kind of state it clearly. The UK is comprised of 4 countries, not states, countries, because they are sovereign countries of their own. The UK is comprised of England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. And I have a couple of videos coming up where I'm going to be talking about how this is even a thing and why it is even a thing, because these are sovereign countries in their own right. And I asked a couple of questions, asked a couple of people, why is this so? And you know, it all boils down to the monarchy, king thingy, but maybe I'll do a separate video about that. So I traveled from London in England to Wales, and then I went from Wales to Belfast. Although that trip from Wales to Belfast took me back into England to Liverpool, and then from Liverpool all the way to Wales, because you got to get a ferry to Belfast, you know, and Belfast is in Northern Ireland. And then I went from Northern Ireland to Scotland, not where I would have loved to go in Scotland, but you will hear all about it later in the video. I went to Scotland, and then from Scotland back to England without actually having to fly. Spoiler, I had to go on top of water instead. Yeah, I took a ferry and it was a good experience. Anyways, so how did I do it? How easy do I think it is to go to all of these places without having to fly? Well, flight is your cheaper option if you want to travel within London. I said within London, within the UK. You can fly from London to different parts of England, actually, not just outside of England. You can fly from London to Manchester. I think that's about 50 something pounds thereabout. And yeah, you can do all of those things. And it's probably a little bit cheaper. I remember talking to my team lead about, you know, the fact that I wanted to do this, and it was like, maybe you should try the flight, it might be cheaper. But what he didn't know, which he would probably find out if he watches this video, is that I have a phobia for being in the air. Not because I don't trust the science behind it. I am a science guy. I love science. I trust it, but I also know that mechanics do fail. Like, not mechanics as in the people, I mean mechanics as in the components, code and stuff. Anyways, this is not to say that you should be scared of flight. You have a better chance being in the air in one of those commercial planes than being on the ground in a car, actually, according to the maths. Anyways, back to what I was saying. You could choose to fly, which, if you don't have a phobia for flight, is the cheaper option and probably the better option, because it is cheaper and it is faster to go through the air, right? But I chose the harder route, and I didn't go alone. Actually, I hit up a friend of mine that was here, that was in the previous video about the transportation in London, Morgan. I hit Morgan up and I'm like, Morgan, I have a road trip plan, let's go. And Morgan, being a chill guy and not a babe who has other things to attend to, so we went from London to Wales, and then from Wales we went to Belfast, and then from Belfast we ended up in a place called Stranraer in Scotland before we then made our way back to London. Now, how did we go? From London to Wales, we did something called a coach. So my guys in Lagos, Nigeria, a coach is basically a bus. When I say God is good bus, you would think it is those small buses. No, we used Flixbus, but there are different coach companies in the UK. We have just made it to our coach. Morgan the sleeper. Obviously, we're trying to solve for cost, and we're trying to solve for time and all of those shebang. So we used the coach from London, Victoria, particularly to Cardiff in Wales, because Cardiff, if you don't know, is the capital city of Wales. Right. So we went all the way to Wales, and it took us about 4 hours. We're supposed to leave at 9 a.m. in the morning. I got there a little late. Morgan says he didn't, but he met me there. What? You know, I should actually pull Morgan and bring him to come and explain that mathematics. We got there a little late because we got on the bus just a minute before the coach was going to move. I'll keep calling this thing a bus because to me, that's what it is. Anyways, we arrived in Wales at about, I'm not sure now, but I think it was a 4 hours journey, right? And how was it? If you don't know, the UK is quite cold at the moment and you got to wear your jacket. You have to protect against the cold. But when we got on the coach, we had to take off our jackets because the heater was on and I started sweating the moment I stepped on the coach, which is good. So there is air conditioning. For those of us who live in Lagos, air conditioning is basically making the room colder, a bit cooler than you get what I'm saying. But in this part of the world, air conditioning goes both ways, cooler and warmer. So the heater was on in the coach, which means the coach had a heater. And I did not know that the coach had a restroom as well because I didn't have to use it. It was just a 4 hours journey. But then we took a coach back from Scotland to London again, and that one people used the restroom because that was a 12 hours journey that made my knee hurt, right? So we got to Wales, spent 2 nights in Wales. Was it 2 nights though? I think it was 3 nights because I extended by 1 more day. The idea for us was we were going to spend 2 nights in each of the cities that we go to. So 2 nights in Cardiff, 2 nights in Belfast, 2 nights in Scotland as well, and then we'll be back in London. That was the plan. But we got to Cardiff, we had to go check into our hotel. We had to take an Uber. Was it Uber or boat? Boat to where we were going, because again, the whole transport system works thing is great if you're in London because the buses come infrequently, the trains come infrequently, and you can always just get on the train and get on the bus without thinking so much about the time. You would get a bus or a train every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes sometimes. But we got to Wales and realized that we had to take Uber of £16. I tell you, I kid you not, £16 of boat from where the coach dropped us, if I can remember correctly, Ferry Gardens, to the hotel that we booked, which wasn't bad because we were just only about 20 minutes away from the city center. If you want to travel anywhere in the UK, you want to be as close to the city center as you can be. So we got there. And getting around Wales wasn't terrible. I mean, we were tourists. We planned for the cash. Not really. But we planned for the cash. And so we had to use boats throughout. We didn't get on the public transport once in our time in Wales. And we spent 2 nights. On the first night, we did nothing. Absolutely nothing. We went to our hotel. And this is not the video about my experience in Cardiff, actually. This is just a video about how we got around. And then we'll talk about my experience in each of the countries in a later video. Belfast is going to get a separate video because I did the Giant Causeway tour and I have a lot of things to say about culture preservation and stuff like that, both in Wales and in Belfast. Today is our Giant Causeway tour, and it's about 7:56 in the morning. I've just called our Uber. So we did that and got to Wales, and then from Wales to Belfast, I think that must have been most unanticipated part of the trip because we had to get to Liverpool first by a train, and then we had to then take the ferry. We had to take a cab from the station at Liverpool to where the ferry was going to pick us up from. It cost us a lot of money. Maybe I shouldn't even be saying it on camera, but we paid £80 each to get on the train from Cardiff, not even to Liverpool, to halfway the journey, and then we paid £15 each to get on the train to the Liverpool station where we were going. And then we now took a cab to get just fly if you can. We took a cab to get to the Stena Line ferry place where we got the ferry that was going to be taking us all the way to Belfast. This was an 8-hour journey, just the ferry, I mean. And it was my first time being on a ferry. It was my first time being on top of water like that. I had been on top of water one time back in Lagos when I was in Federal College of Technology at Coca. And my mom should not be hearing this because she didn't send me to go and enter water. A canoe guy came to us while we were standing at the Unilag Lagoon front, and he was like, "Do you guys want to experience? Do you want to come on the water?" And me and my friend said, "Hey, yeah." And we got on the canoe. This canoe is all those canoes that they use plank to make seats in it. So we got on the canoe and we rode. You know, you can sit on the land bridge from a certain place when you stand at the lagoon front. Yeah. So we got to that Tottenham Land Bridge place. And yeah. It was something. Anyways, I want to go make a toast, but I would continue the other part of my gist while I'm making the toast downstairs. Okay. So, be not deceived about the fact that I'm in the kitchen right now. I don't know how to cook jack shit. I just want to make toast while I tell you guys about my experience of the ferry, because that's where I stopped while I was upstairs, isn't it? I think humans were quite daring. We are very, very daring. Daring, in fact, daring lion. That's what we are. Because tell me, why we would think we have the confidence to build such massive stuff and put it on top of water and expect it not to float? I mean, I understand that it's engineering and I understand all the engineering behind it, but it's still, this is all kind of me, you know, marveling and marvelous and stuff like that. So Stena Line. Stena Line operates ferries in the UK from different places to different places. The one we took was from Liverpool, Birkenhead to Belfast, and it wasn't quite fast because it took us 8 hours. It would have taken an hour for a plane to take us from Wales to Belfast, an hour 12 minutes max. It took us 8 hours to go from Birkenhead to, I'm not even sure if that's the pronunciation. Please, if you know the pronunciation, help me in the comment section. I don't know. It's not like I know and I'm just spewing, you know, I don't know what it is. But Liverpool, Birkenhead to Belfast, I was amazed. So first of all, you have two options when traveling with this thing that we have put on top of water called the ferries. And I realized that as I'm saying this thing, I'm not actually making my toast. So let me make my toast while permit me to look away for a bit. Fun fact, they don't have Niger bread as such here. I know that my aunt has said, come to my place, there are bakeries on the road, and that's in Dagenham. But why can't I just walk into a store and see bread that feels, looks, and tastes like Niger bread? The bread they have here is, and if you know me, you know I'm a proponent of eating bread. Even though, you know, as I'm growing older, I'm trying to not eat bread as such, but come on, the fastest food to eat is bread because I don't get to make it. Anyway, Liverpool, Birkenhead to Belfast. We did make the journey. There are two ways for you to get onto Belfast. You could actually go with your car. So you take your car onto the ferry and then you take your car out of the ferry when you get where you're going. That's how big this thing is. We were on the 8th deck for the most of our time there, and I think on the 9th one because we went into the cinema room. Yes, there is a cinema on board. 2 actually. We're on the 8th deck, and that means that the decks beneath us were all for car parks, right? You could go with your car, which cost a little bit more, I think about £100. But since we didn't have a car, Morgan, my friend, does not have a car. The guy, I don't understand him. He made us be spending money on boat and Uber. Anyways, since we did not have a car, we decided to take the foot option. So we got on foot, and I think it was about, I'm not sure exactly now, but it was maybe £40 or £60 to get from Liverpool to Belfast on the ferry, which was nice, no lies told. I'm happy I got to experience it. I'm so happy I got to experience it that I wanted to experience it again, which was why we took the ferry again all the way out, because we could have actually flown. You know, my fear of flight is not that bad. We could have actually just flown, but I wanted us to take the ferry again after. I'll tell you all about that. Anyways, so on the ferry, there was Costa where you could buy coffee, right, on the ferry, and a restaurant on board where we could buy food and eat. I was very hungry at this point. Morgan couldn't have said he was hungry because, come on, Morgan always ate. Morgan can eat. Jesus is Lord. Anyways, Morgan always ate. So we got on our way not long after we were supposed to depart. Again, because time is something that they take very important here in Wales. In the UK, I will probably talk a little bit more about that in some other video. But anyways, yeah. So we got on our way to Belfast, and I wanted to see what it looked like outside of this ferry, this gigantic stuff that we have put on top of water. And I went outside, myself and Morgan. I even wrote a tiny little bit of song in a Snapchat video. Far away from here we go, into the sea we go. Away from land we go. Yeah, so I didn't want to sleep, but I eventually slept, obviously. I didn't want to sleep because I figured it was my first time being on a ferry. I should be able to gather some experience and stuff, but there wasn't so much experience to gather. And then we realized there was a movie, there were a couple of movies showing. The cinema isn't like a normal cinema, it's just like a room where there are a bunch of comfortable chairs and then there are screens, 2 screens to be exact. And they were going to be showing certain movies for this journey. And so we're like, you know, let's go upstairs, let's go see the movies. It was nice being on the ferry. The rug in the cinema room was very comfy to sleep on. You actually have the option of booking a sleeping quarters or something. I'm not sure exactly what they call it now. Is it carriage or something, where you can actually sleep on the ferry? But we didn't get that, not because we were poor, but because I wanted to experience what it feels like to actually be on the ferry, because I wasn't going to be sleeping anyway. Okay, my toast is done. Anyways, we got off the ferry in the morning at Belfast because we took the night ride, and it was good. This was a Wednesday. I was supposed to meet with my team lead. We did a bunch of shebang during the day. I worked on that day. We didn't go out, and then I dashed out in the evening. This whole day wasn't a content day. It was just a day that I set out aside so that I can meet with my boss. Anyways, met with my boss. It was a beautiful time. I got to learn a little bit about Belfast. I will chunk all of that in the Belfast video that's going to come out soon. So you encouraged me to go on the causeway, which I'm glad you did, because I actually did go on the causeway. It was beautiful in Belfast. We didn't spend as much on sorry, is this thing still in? Okay, so let's finish the rest of our story while I eat my toast. We got to Belfast. Obviously, I'm here, so the ferry didn't sink. So we got to Belfast. It was okay moving around Belfast. We took the bus. We even took something called a glider. Apparently, a glider is almost like a train, but it is not, because it has different coaches. And basically what happens, it's like having the front of a bus and the back of a bus, but then you can fuse different coaches in the middle, the way you have train coaches, right? We took the G1 glider, G1 specifically. Boat doesn't work in Belfast. Boat doesn't work in Stranraer. The app literally just tells you that boat doesn't operate in this region. Boat, do something about that. But Uber does, and we used Uber a couple of times. It was in Belfast I got my DJI gimbal. It was in Belfast I got this lens I'm using to shoot right now as well, from Wex Photographic. Shout out to them. The guys were very nice. They were almost closing when I walked in, and they attended to me. We were able to buy this stuff. I was going to buy a light that I could use as well, because it was almost like we were going out in the night. We needed to shoot. I was going to go shoot the Christmas market, because I had visited the Christmas market the day before, and that's something that I'm going to talk about in another video. The concept of Christmas market and Christmas and stuff doesn't exist in Nigeria, at least that I know of. But yeah, I visited the Christmas market in Belfast. I will talk about that in Belfast video. Yeah, getting around was chill. Google Map worked well. I'm a diehard Google fan. I don't really try anything else. Even though I have an iPhone, I've never really opened the Apple Maps to use it for shit. But Google Map does everything I need it to do, and we had a great time in Belfast. Obviously, if you want to do this, you want to plan ahead, book your tickets, book your stay, and all of those things ahead. I didn't do that because I wanted to be able to talk about it in this video and say, you know, we didn't plan for it and we're able to get around fine. So yeah, getting from Belfast to Scotland, we had two options by ferry, obviously. So we could have taken the Stena Line again from Belfast to where we were supposed to actually be in Edinburgh, because the plan was that we were going to go from Belfast all the way to Edinburgh, because Edinburgh is the capital city of Scotland. I shit the bed with my research and thought that we could actually get there using another ferry line, but apparently P&O doesn't go to Edinburgh, it goes to Stranraer. And this was the point where our journey began to take a dip, because to get to where we were going to take P&O, and just to try and justify the reason why I wanted us to take P&O, I'm not even eating this thing that I made. Really good. So we had taken the Stena Line, and I wanted us to experience, do all the ferries look like the Stena Line? Clearly they can't, but what do they have in common and stuff like that? So I wanted us to take P&O, which was the only other option that we had, and that was going to be going from a city that is not Belfast. It was going to be going from Lan. I booked it. I'm like, let's go to the Port of Lan. Little did I know, first of all, it cost us a lot of money going from Belfast to Port of Lan, because we had to take a cab, and then we got to Port of Lan, and there was I realizing that, oh shit, this wasn't going to go to Edinburgh, it's going to go to Stranraer. We had already paid for this trip. We can't go back now. We don't have a place to stay for the night in Lan or in Belfast because we didn't book a place ahead of time. So we have to get on this thing and get to Stranraer, and we're in Scotland already. Let's see if we can even make our way. Or anyways, we went to Stranraer. The ferry wasn't bad, and then we got to Stranraer in the night at about 8 p.m, which was the time we're supposed to get there. And this is the point where I have to tell you that transportation in the UK is not good everywhere. It's not great everywhere. It's not as great everywhere, because we got there, we checked the map. Google Map told us this bus was coming at 8:25, I think, and we're like, okay, that's fine. It's going to drop us right in front of where we need to be, where the hotel that we had booked for the night was. Little did we know, we waited for this bus for about, if I'm not mistaken, about 20 minutes after it was supposed to have come. It didn't come, and then I'm like, Morgan, I need to use the toilet. So I went back in, left the bus stop. Mind you, we're standing in the cold at this point, not freezing, but it was about 6 degrees or thereabout. And I'm like, you know what, Morgan, I want to use the toilet. Morgan, please stand outside. If you see the bus, let me know so that I can finish what I'm doing faster and come outside. Obviously, I went to ease myself. It's not like I went to do number 2. So I got in, was easing myself, and then I heard Morgan saying, yo. Apparently, Morgan has seen the bus coming from afar. I kid you not. This bus that does not have any other one scheduled for the night went straight through, didn't stop at the bus stop. It just went and turned around and passed before we could come outside. And that's how we missed the bus. So we had to find another way to get to where we're going, obviously. Luckily for us, there was a taxi company company that had their billboard inside of the P&O place. I think they're called McLane or some McLane actually. And then we called McLane and McLane sent us Oscar. Oscar came, picked us up. It wasn't so expensive. I think it was like £12 or thereabout. Picked us up, took us to our hotel, and Oscar was like, if you guys are going to wherever in London in the morning, I can take you there for about £800. And I'm like, £800? Do you know how much £800 is in my currency? My currency of choice. We knew we weren't going to go with Oscar. So what we did was we looked at the map and tried to plan our day the next day. The next day came, I slept late into the morning because the only way for us to get where we're going was to get to London back, because at this point we had given up the whatever of exploring Scotland at this point. The only way for us to get back to London was to do a coach again, but the coach wasn't going to go from Stranraer. We could only get a coach from Glasgow. We had to get to Glasgow from Portrody, obviously. Stranraer, where we have just been dropped. So we tried to get the bus. Now, if you don't know how to use Google Maps, this is a tip. In places like London and in the UK, when you search for a place and Google shows you the direction to where you're going, it will always add if you can pay for that trip on the bus with contactless. Please, if you don't see that information, check out to get tickets for that bus. Because what happened to us was we actually saw the bus that was supposed to take us to Glasgow, but that bus required us to have purchased the ticket beforehand, and so we couldn't get to Glasgow. And now I remember the name of the bus stop that we were going. It's called Ayr, Ayr. So we had to wait for another bus to take us from where we were at Portrody to Ayr, because the bus that is supposed to take us from Ayr to Glasgow was supposed to leave at the same time that our bus was supposed to arrive. So we got to Ayr and the bus that was supposed to take us to Glasgow had just left. And so, long story short, we had to pay £100 to a taxi guy to take us to Glasgow, because if we didn't, we would have missed our coach to London and there would have been nothing we could have done about it. We would have actually just had to pay another money to get to London. So overall, let me just summarize everything I have to say. This trip only took a nosedive for a couple of reasons. We didn't plan at all, okay? We just had an idea where we're going and how we're going to connect the dots, but we didn't necessarily plan on, like buy tickets beforehand and stuff. And it was worse in Scotland, and a lot of people will argue that it is the part of Scotland that we ended up in, and I think that might be true, but I don't know, because this is my experience. We did have to scurry around a little bit in Scotland, but aside from that, it was good getting around. I mean, this video is about getting around. It was good. Yeah, I didn't get kidnapped on the road, even though there was a 12-hour journey from Glasgow to London. It was okay. I wonder if I snored on the bus, on the coach when I was sleeping, and didn't let other people sleep. Anyways, I'm going to finish up my stuff now and try to get this footage out of the camera so that I can edit it. I'll see you again in the next episode of Ajala. Thank you very much for staying till the end. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. Thank you very much. Peace.